How do you find out the truth when your culture, the people who control your culture, are lying to you overall? This is about the news. We can never trust an institution again if they keep lying to us.
Vice President Kamala Harris kicks Bret Baier's ass.
Welcome to John Mike Keene. Now, one of the guys that we followed all through the election who is a truth teller is Mark Halperin.
There's not a lot of confronting any weaknesses on the part of the candidate. And they're basically sticking with the line was they could never win because they didn't have enough time. If they didn't have enough time, she shouldn't have run.
Now, this is on the Democrats will not blame the candidate, Kamala.
It may be time for Biden to consider stepping aside. He also said we should wait a few days to see how he responds. We're shoulder to shoulder on that. I do agree. Joe Biden has work to do. He has to do better. His team has to do a lot better. I'm just not ready, though, to count Joe Biden out. Not even close.
Them covering for her, the person, and blaming things like timing because they never have to look inside and question their own backwards liberal values and go, people rejected our values. They go, no, there just wasn't enough time for Kamala Harris.
2 weeks talking about how she didn't do interviews, which, she was doing plenty, but we were doing in our own way. We had to, be the nominee, had to find a running mate and do a rollout. I mean, there was all these things that you kind of want to factor in.
That is Kamala Harris's, one of her campaign managers saying, oh, we had to pick a vice president. There wasn't enough time, even though Trump also picked a vice president.
Real people heard in some way that we were not going to have interviews, which was both not true and also so counter to any kind of standard that was put on Trump.
And now she's complaining that Trump was not held to as high of a standard as Kamala Harris, whereas Trump got 86% negative coverage, probably 90% negative coverage by the media. Kamala Harris, maybe 10% negative coverage. And the negative thing they said was she's not willing to do interviews. They didn't even go after any of her values or any of her positions like they did on Trump. So the idea that they would complain that it was somehow unfair, again, only goes to show how lost and blind they are.
What Kamala Harris did last night sealed this election victory for her.
This is about today. I'm not talking about the vote or the election that happened. I'm talking about today. What are the people that feed you the news and running the culture saying they're still lying to you?
We would do an interview, and to Stephanie's point, the questions were small and processy about
dumb.
They were not informing a voter who was trying to listen to learn more.
I like how they're blaming the people that questioned Kamala when they did finally do an interview. She only got dumb questions. 60 minutes, and it was on just simple and very easy to do because Kamala Harris couldn't weather even the softest interview, whereas Trump would just get hammered in any interview. Even by his own side, they would challenge him.
Their internal polling never showed Harris ahead. I reported that for weeks. My evaluation of the internal polling was right. I appreciate the credit.
I just want to champion Mark Halperin. He's a centrist, but we followed his polling from early on, and we presented it to you because we found him to be a trustworthy source of the truth, not biased, not for Trump and against Kamala Harris. He was unbiased. He was right early on, and that's why we were bringing him to you early on.
But I wouldn't call it an evaluation. I would call it the reality of what all the Democratic and Republican polling I heard about showed, that they were even or behind everywhere, not ahead.
Yeah, that's all they said was, we just countered the polls, that Kamala was never ahead. And on the ground, Trump was always doing well. Now, we're going to go back to Jen Rubin here, because again, this is the kind of New York Democrat that really thinks you're stupid.
And the other thing I think she needs to do is get to know the rest of the electorate that Democrats had so much difficulty reaching. But the group that I'm much more concerned about are the people who don't get any news. Those people voted overwhelmingly for Trump. He is the president of the ignorant, the president of the disengaged.
He's the president of the people that also don't watch news, which is very interesting. You'll literally have a better grasp of the truth if you don't get any left-wing news or anything from culture, because culture is 100% lying to you.
We've also been surprised by the level of animosity toward Donald Trump from people who once supported him. The debate acted as a wake-up call that was a loss for Joe Biden, no question, but not a win for Trump. The choice is one terribly bad night versus a decade of destruction to our core beliefs, our democratic values, and yes, our Constitution.
So that the person who actually doesn't engage at all actually has an advantage over people like Jen Rubin and all the Democrats that believe that Kamala Harris was ahead, in spite of the reality, now Democrats are admitting, was she was never ahead.
And Democrats can't ignore them. I know it's tempting for them to say, how can anyone not know what a policy issue is that's important in a national election?
And she doesn't mean that either. Go tell your average American that the Democrats are going to attack the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, that they despise your family, that they want to take your kid, the government wants to take your kids away and perform surgeries on them without your permission. Tell them the things that they believe, tampons in the boys' bathroom. The more they're informed about the actual truth, the less likely they'd vote Democrats.
I got news for them. Most people can't name a Supreme Court justice. Most people can't name the three branches of government.
That most people are not as political or politically minded, that benefits Kamala Harris. I think the more they learned about the Supreme Court, the more likely they'd vote for Trump. She just assumes that they would not vote if they were more informed about the news. What she means is if the Democrats can tell them what to do, say, and think, which is what they do with culture.
We have an epidemic of ignorance. So on one hand, Democrats have to work on making them less ignorant, less disengaged.
Oh, that would be the day if only people were informed, like that the border wasn't secure and they were lied to by media, like that Biden was sharp as a tack. The media said as he was just crumbling before our eyes. She wants to control the narrative, not the facts of what you'd actually see.
But I think she really has to use her incredible charisma, her incredible personality to begin to reach those people who are not political.
She believes Kamala Harris has incredible charisma and personality, which is more brainwashing you. Kamala Harris literally just lost an election for being probably one of the least popular candidates you could have ever run against Trump. And she's saying the more you find out about Kamala Harris, the more you'll like her. These people are stuck on stupid. They're still lying to you. I'm John Mike Keene.